Hi everybody, and thank you for joining my live stream again. I'm Darnall with Darnall Art. And tonight we're going to be working on a drawing that I've already started, that I've been working on the past week. And I thought I would just let you see where I'm at, and I'll just continue working on this drawing and let you see what I'm doing with it. So let me bring up the drawing here real quick. Well, actually, first let me bring up my reference photo. All right, so this is my reference photo, and this is a photograph by James Naftali, and it is from unsplash.com. I talk about Unsplash every week. That's where I go to get a lot of my reference photos. They have photographers who share their photographs out there with whoever wants to use them, and the images, there's just a ton of images out there. They're really good, and the photographers are offering their work for people to use in their artwork or in their projects. So check it out, unsplash.com, if you get a chance and you're looking for reference material. All right, so let me bring up my main drawing here. Okay. All right, so this is where I'm currently at with this drawing, and let me bring up the reference photo with it here. There we go. All right, so it is an image of a parrot, and he's got his head kind of tucked under his wing, or his wing is raised up. And everything I've done over the past week, I started off with a drawing in pencil, and then I started in with the pen and ink. Now, up to this point, I've been using primarily 3 pens. These are fine liner pens, is what they're called. I've got a pen from Micron. I've got a pen from Copic. And I've also got a pen from Unipen. So I use different brands. They offer different things, or different qualities and features. And tonight I'll be using an additional pen, and it's this one. It's also a Micron pen, somewhere on there. And this one here is a brush pen, so it's a little bit different. The other ones are all fine liner pens that are designed to put down small lines, and this one is a brush. So what I'm going to start off with is back here in this background area, which needs to be filled in as basically black. But first, let me put together just a real quick video here that kind of shows the progress of this. So if you look at the video, you can see that I started off with just a pencil drawing, and now I'm going in and I'm going to start using one of the pens to mark down the areas where I know I'm going to have some of the shadows. So some of the deep shadow areas in here and down in here, and you can actually see it. You'll see me here in a little bit marking some of these lines down. And I wanted to put those in because with all of the feathers and everything on here, and the light pencil drawing, this could get really complicated really fast, and trying to remember where do I need to put shadows on this drawing. So I put these down more or less as reference. And then as I start going in and actually putting down the ink work on this, those lines basically get absorbed into the shadows, because that's essentially what they are, is what I thought were some of the deepest shadow areas. And you can see on the video that right now I'm getting some of those areas put in. I'm putting in kind of the final lines. And then here in a second, I'm going to start working with a couple of different pens, and I'm going to actually start putting in some of the feather detail. So now I'm going in with a pen that actually has a gray ink in it instead of a black ink. And with that pen, I'm using that to put detail into the feathers, the lightest areas of the feathers. And then I come back in with a darker gray pen to put in some of the mid-tone shadows. And then I come in with a black pen to put in the deepest shadows. And as you'll see in the video, I'm just slowly working my way around, doing different areas of feathers, and trying to kind of figure this out as I'm going, as to, how dark I want things to be, where I want shadows to be. I guess my video is not looking good, is what I'm being told. So let me hold on for a second here and see if I can fix this. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on, but give me just a half second, and I'll see if I can sort it out real quick. I had this problem last week, and I apologize to everybody last week. It was really frustrating. but I'll see if I can fix the problem here. Okay. All right, so let's see if that helps with the quality of the picture and the video. If it does, if somebody can just let me know that it's looking better, I would certainly appreciate it. All right. Okay, so looks like the video is probably stalled right now. So all of this is new to me with the live streaming, and so it's all been kind of a learning process for me. So it looks like the video is probably stalled and probably ended at this point. Anyways, where we're at right now is at this point. So what I thought I would do is I would come in and I would start putting in, like I said, all of this area back in here, which is where the background is at. Now this background is going to be pretty much completely black, and that's what I intend to do with it, is just make it a completely black background. And so I'm going to start off here by putting on some pieces of tape, and I just want to put those on because I want to kind of mask the drawing area a little bit, because I don't want to bleed off onto the other areas. So I'm going to start in here with a piece of tape on this short side. And then we'll put a piece across at the top here. There we go. And finally, I will come in and I will put in a piece of tape on this side. And like I said, all of this is just intended to prevent me from going outside of the border area that I've got set up here. So I can keep a fairly clean line along here. All right. Okay, so I'm not sure how the video itself is looking. If anybody's out there and can tell me if it's improved. Okay, so I'm hearing now that my audio is doing some weird things. Okay, I apologize for that as well. I'm really not sure why it's doing that. I'm going to try one more thing here to fix it. See if I can improve on this. Okay, I think we might be back. I don't know how the picture looks here or how the sound looks. If somebody can kind of give me a heads up, that would be great. Okay. All right, so let me pick back up where I left off at, and we'll just keep working from here. Hopefully this will continue working for me for the rest of the evening. I sure hope it does. All right, so like I said, I put tape up on here. The purpose of this is just so I can mask off the background area. And essentially what I am going to do now is pull out another pen that I have not used previously, and this one is called a brush pen. So if you look at the tip of this, let me find one of the other pens here. I'll grab this Micron. Okay, so if you look at these two pens, you can see that the pen on top has a really, really small tip to it. And with that one, I can come in here and I can put in extremely fine little lines on there. Okay, and then this one has got a larger brush tip on it. And with that one, I can still put in actually fairly fine lines if I am really, really careful and really, really light. But they're hard to control. But the real beauty of this one is that I can also come in and I can put in fairly large brush strokes. So I can cover an area of paper really, really quickly with this pen, okay? And that's what I'm going to start doing here. Now, in order to do this, I'm actually going to take the drawing and I'm going to turn it upside down. So hang on for a second while I do that. And you get to see my dirty drawing board. So that's a real treat for everyone, I'm sure. Okay, so now I should be back up there. All right. So what I want to do with this is I'm just going to start off over here. And I'm going to come up to this line that I've put on there. And I'm going to work in from here. And I'm just going to slowly come in and start to come up to that line. Oops, I already jumped into that unintentionally. And we'll see if we can avoid doing that again over here. There we go. So this is kind of a slow process here. You have to be really careful. I've got a lot of little detail, especially as I get up towards the top of the parrot's head. And I don't want to lose all those little bumps and edges and things. And I may actually, on some of those, I may not do those with the brush pen. I may actually come in and do those with my smaller pen and then create kind of a little buffer area for myself between the drawing and where I want to put in with the brush pen. Okay, here's a good area. Hang on, let me grab my glasses. There we go. I can see that a little bit better. I've got a pair of glasses that are actually magnifying glasses. I do use reading glasses nowadays, but I also have a pair of glasses I use here in the studio that are magnifying glasses, so I can see small detail stuff when I'm working on it, like this here. And I just want to take my time, go through here and hit these areas and get this blocked in fairly well. You may have just seen a little bit of a flash of light. My power surged here just a little bit. It's been happening today. So, and you've probably heard me talk in the past that, you know, part of what I do in here when I'm drawing, I get really involved in this. I kind of lose track of time and what's going on, and it's really easy to kind of get into the drawing and just use my time in the studio working on a drawing as kind of my own little personal therapy session to wind down, especially if I've had a particularly difficult day at work or, you know, have just different things going on. And you can come in here, you can get so focused on the drawing that all of that just completely escapes you for an hour or two. And I think that's one of the things that I've always liked about drawing, even when I was a kid. Getting into doing the drawing was a great way to kind of set the world aside for a little bit and zone out. And I think that's probably one of the nicest benefits of working as an artist, is that you can do something where focusing on this and zoning out is actually a plus. You can't really do that with a lot of jobs, and with doing this type of work, you certainly can. So, hey, I see I've got at least a couple people out there. So, to everybody who's out there, hi, I appreciate you joining the site. If you get a chance, if you enjoy what you're seeing, if you'd like to see more of it, if you can hit the subscribe button, and also if you would like and share the channel. And there's also the little bell, which is a notification button. And if you click that, anytime that I'm setting up a live stream or anytime that I post a new video, YouTube should send you a notice somehow. I think they just kind of put a message up on your YouTube main screen and let you know that I've got something new out there. And I would really appreciate it. It will help me to grow the channel. It'll help me to get more opportunities with YouTube. And please give me your feedback as to, what you think about the video, what you think about my artwork, what you would like to see me do differently, or what you think I could do to make the channel better. All of your comments and observations are definitely appreciated. My wife, every week after I do one of these live streams, my wife spends a little bit of time going over it with me, and she tells me what she thinks about what I've done well and what I've not done so well, and she gives me feedback even as I'm doing the live streams about what's going on. She was giving me some feedback this evening when the video and the audio was not looking real good at the outset, and I appreciate that, and I certainly would appreciate it from anybody that's out there watching. So if you are out there, let me know. If you have any questions or comments while I'm doing the live stream, please share those as well. I'd love to hear from people and answer any questions you've got, and see what you've got in the way of feedback and comments. So, and this is kind of a time-consuming part of the drawing here, working my way around this. Once I get this laid in on all these little areas in here, then I'm really going to go to town on this background area. And part of why I want to get this background area done is because I need the black background in place, because as I'm putting in this black background, a lot of my drawing is going to start to look lighter. Okay, if you've got an area of tone set down, and it's just it's in the middle of a big piece of white page, that tone's going to look fairly dark against just a stark white background. But as soon as you start to put in other values around it, and especially if you start to put in a solid black, like I'm doing now, then those tones start to look lighter. Just because in comparison to the black that I'm putting down, they are lighter. And then the black just makes that stand out a little bit more than when it's just by itself. Okay, so now we've got a fairly good border around the edges of this guy. So I'm going to come down over here, and I'm just going to start laying in the more solid areas here. I'm going to fill in a lot of this fairly quickly. And again, I want to be careful, because even though I can cover a lot of area here, in these areas that are still around the edge of the drawing, I have to be careful that I don't get too overzealous and jump into the drawing itself. It's real easy to do. I've done it before, and it can be really, really frustrating and upsetting when you do that and you're quite a ways into a drawing and you do something like that, and then you either got to figure out some way to salvage the drawing, which is not always possible, or you've just got to accept that you kind of screwed up on that one and start again from scratch. And I've had to do both several times over the years. Neither one is very fun, but it happens. And like I always say, everything we do as an artist is part of the learning process. You're learning what works with your tools. You're learning what works with the different paper or canvases or other media that you're working on. It's all part of learning your craft and honing your skills. And you are going to have days where you make some mistakes, but that's how you learn. You put down a line with a pen and it comes out great, and hopefully you remember how you did that. And when the opportunity comes to use that technique again, you're ready for it. In fact, you're probably looking for ways that you can use that technique. Okay? So now I'm going to put in some longer strokes here and start filling in some fairly large areas of this background. And I don't know how it's coming out on the camera there. My view of the camera on the computer is a little bit on the small side, but there are definitely some stroke marks showing in here, and that happens with pretty much any ink that you use. And I probably will have to go over this background a second time for sure, and possibly even a third time, to clean up some of those stroke marks. I'm just going around the edges here. I want to try and do the kind of the same thing I did here as I did around the bird, just to kind of outline this a little bit, make it a little bit easier to get into as I'm filling in the rest of the background area. And you can see as I move quickly across the paper, I'm laying down thinner layers of ink. So this is one of the drawbacks to these type of pens, these technical pens, is although they do a good job of giving you a steady flow of ink, they can also run a little bit short if you're using them too quickly. So now we'll just come in here and I'll start working on filling in some of this area. I'll mass in some of this background area here. So the ink in these pens are an archival ink. So they are very unlikely to fade. The ink is actually a great material to work with because almost all ink, except for some of your colored inks, but almost all of your black inks are extremely resistant to fading. So if you're doing pen and ink drawings, the archival quality of your work is going to be pretty solid, as long as the material that you're drawing on is also archival. So, and what I'm drawing on here, most of the live streams I've done, I've been using some newsprint. What I'm using here is a Bristol Strathmore smooth Bristol. It's kind of a cardboard paper, and this has got a smooth surface on it, which is really nice when you're working with pen and ink. You don't get a lot of texture and things like that show up through your lines. You can use this paper for doing pencil drawings. It erases really beautifully with pencil, but you will also find that it tends to limit you in terms of how dark you can get your pencil marks, because it just doesn't have a lot of tooth to take pencil. So I think there's a possibility this brush pen might be about to run out of ink. It's really struggling to lay down ink a couple of times here. So, and that happens too, just like a regular any ink pen. These will eventually run out of ink. I have tried in the past to recharge them with regular ink, and I've kind of had mixed results. I've had a few pens I've done it on, and it's actually worked well. And then I've had others where I just ended up with a kind of an inky mess all over my fingers, and the pen never really drew again. They're not intended to be refilled, but you know, it's one of those things that you might try at some point in time. It doesn't hurt to try, right? You gotta give it a shot. So bear with me for just a second. I'm going to see if I've got another brush pen over here. I think I might have. Okay. Let's see here. Just try it out here. No, unfortunately, I thought I had another brush pen, but it looks like I may not have one handy here. So that's all right. I will just continue working with this one for a little bit. I think at this point I'm going to turn the drawing back over. There we go. And see if I can pull some more ink out of this. Now there are other ways that I could put ink down. I could actually use regular ink just straight out of an inkwell, and I could put it on a brush and I could brush it in. And I may end up doing that here as well. This brush is pretty much going to give out on me. So, all right, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Since this brush is not really working for me, I am going to go back to working on some of the feathers. And we're going to just kind of pick up where I left off on here, and we're going to do some drawing on the feathers. So let me get something set up here. There we go. All right. So the first pen that I need is right here. Okay. So this pen here is actually a light gray pen. This is the one that I'm using in here on the feathers to create kind of the lighter feather details. Okay. And I'm going to come in here. I've got a group of feathers right in here that I'd started working on yesterday. And I think I'll try and just pick up on here and continue working on these. So I'm just going to come in. I'm putting in very light strokes. I'm going to try and cover a fairly large area here. And now I want to pay a little bit more attention to the direction of some of these strokes, because there are some areas here where the feathers get a little bit darker. And if I go over those areas with this pen a second pass like I'm doing now, you can see that I can darken those areas up quite a bit. And I want to come in here and darken those up. Now I'm going to come in with another pen here. And this one is a medium gray pen. So this is an actual darker gray ink than the one that I was using. And I want to try and come out of my shadow area and into my light areas just a little bit. And by doing that, what I'm doing is hopefully creating a gradient, and a fairly smooth gradient from the dark shadow areas into the lighter feather areas. Okay? And then I want to come in here and put it down on this edge a little bit. Now this is one way of doing this. There's certainly a number of different ways that you can use a pen and ink, and this is just one of the ways that I like to use it. Okay. Now when I get done with everything on this drawing, and I'm ready to start getting into the finish work on this, a lot of these areas are going to end up getting darkened quite a bit, because as I'm doing this drawing, I'm starting to see this, some of these feathers over in here that I started on have to be darker than some of the feathers up here and some of the feathers over here. These are closer to the light, so these eventually are going to have to get darker, but I don't want to go too dark just yet. I would rather stay a little bit light and then come back in and darken those towards the end of the drawing, because once I darken them, there's no way really of bringing them back to being light again. Okay, so we're going to come in and we're going to work on this feather here now. And this feather's got a little bit of light, and then it's surrounded by some pretty heavy shadows. Okay, so again, I'm going to pay attention to the direction of the feather, and I want to try and make sure that I'm putting these strokes in there so that it makes sense to how that feather is actually laid in. Okay, and this feather is got some darker areas out here, so I want to make sure that I'm representing those with my lines. Okay, and it gets a little bit darker back here towards the back side of this feather. And eventually this all goes into the shadows. But I want to go ahead and work out into those so that when I start laying in my darker pens here in a second, there's not just this stark jump from one to the other. It gives me the opportunity to do some blending in here with the pens. Okay, so now I'm going to come in with my darker gray pen. And I'm going to start off over here, and I'm going to basically work my way into the shadows over here. And hopefully you can see that it is slightly darker than the pen that I laid down with the lighter pen, but where I went over with the lighter pen twice, I'm getting a little less contrast, so I'm getting a little bit more of a blended look over there. And I want to do the same thing over in this area. Okay, and I need to look at my reference for just a second, because I know there's kind of a feature over here I want to make sure I capture. So there's a little line there because there's a little bit of a feather that I need to get it up here. And now I'm going to pull this down just a little bit in spots to help create that blend on here. Okay, so I'm coming down in my lighter feather with the darker pen. And now I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to go a little bit heavier up here, but I'm going to go a different direction. Up here, that'll help to darken some of this up along this top edge. And then this black line that I've got here is going to actually be hard black shadow momentarily. So where it's standing out really kind of boldly right now, as I start to come in here with my black pen, that's going to start to stand out less and less. I'm going to eventually be able to work that out so that it doesn't show a line there at all, hopefully. Okay, so now I'm going to come in with my black pen. Now this is a really, really fine pen. Okay, and what I'm trying to do is on the edges of this, I'm actually trying to go up into this feather a little bit. Okay, and hopefully by doing that, what I'm accomplishing is creating a little bit of an effect here where you see the edge of this feather is now breaking up. Okay? And then I want to come down into my gray areas here a little bit. And again, I'm working on trying to get that blend. I want to get that blended effect in there. Okay? And now up in here, I'm going to kind of work in a crosshatch where I'm going, my lines were going this way, and I'm going to cross them this way, which helps me to fill in more area and get a much darker area, a much darker tone. But I also don't want to just come in and just put in a real harsh black mass in there, because this is a textured area. It's got some contours, and even though it's really heavy shadow, it really isn't a completely solid black. Okay. All right. So there we go. I've got a shadow up in there, and hopefully you can see where it's going up into that feather and breaking that up a little bit. And the next thing I want to do is come into the underside of this feather. But before I do that, I need to start laying in this feather underneath it. Okay, so there's a bigger feather under here, and I need to start getting that feather in place. So we'll come in with my lighter pen again. And again, I'm going to go up here. I know this is going to be shadows, but I want to get up in there because I want to make sure that I've covered the whole thing, so that when I come in to create my blend, and I actually need to pay attention to what I'm doing here, and I need to lay my feathers in so that they actually make sense. Feathers have it like a central stalk right here. I don't know what it's called, but then the actual individual feather blades come off of that central stalk. Okay, and I guess it's interesting to me. I don't know if it's interesting to other people, but feathers on birds are actually the equivalent to scales. If you look at them, they actually are laid out on the bird like scales, and they are a carryover from their prehistoric ancestors where they had essentially scaly skin. And so the feathers are a carryover of that trait. So it sometimes helps with some birds when you're drawing to keep that in mind, that what you're drawing actually is a form of scales. They're definitely different than drawing fur on an animal. It's definitely a different texture and design. Got some darker shadows back here on that feather. All right, so now I'm going to come in with my medium gray, and I'm going to start to work this in again back here. And the shadow back here comes down quite a ways. There we go. And now we'll come in with my black fine liner pen. And again, I'm going to, all of this right in here is going to be very black shadows. So I want to come into this feather up here, and I want to intentionally run through that black line. I want to make that black line kind of disappear as being a line. And once I've done that, then I can start to work in the actual remainder of the shadow. I want to be aware of where I'm putting this shadow at, because I don't want to come down too far and get into the areas of the feather that should actually be lighter. And I want to be able to keep my medium gray in here so that it actually blends in. Now you'll notice that this shadow area here is wider than this shadow area, and that would be because this feather here is lifted up further off of this feather. So it's going to cast a larger shadow, and that shadow is going to be darker immediately under the feather, but it's going to gradually get lighter the further away from this feather that it gets down here. So shadows, even very hard shadows, don't tend to be completely solid. They have a gradual shift from dark shadow to lighter shadow. Okay, and I want to come back in with my medium pen here, because I want to pull that out a little bit. And work on that blend. There we go. All right. So, I'm going to continue working on this drawing, and hopefully next week when I do my live stream, I will show you either the progress on it, or possibly even I'll have the drawing finished, and I will share it with you. And I hope you've enjoyed the drawing that I've done. If you have, like I said, please subscribe, like, and share, and leave me some comments. I'm sorry, Primal Gamer, how are you doing? I didn't see you there. I appreciate the comment. Please subscribe. I'm glad that you tuned in. I apologize I didn't see you until just now, right at the end of the video. But yeah, so next week I will share what I've done, and we will start working on something else on the live stream. And I hope you've enjoyed it. So for Barry Darnall Art, I'm Barry Darnall. Thank you very much for tuning in. I apologize for the problems earlier in the stream, and I will certainly try to solve that problem moving forward. So thanks again. Have a great evening, and I will see you sometime soon.